Welcome into the Illini Inquirer Podcast, and he's back, but he's different. He's got that dad glow about him. It's Derek Piper, new father to baby Cade, and Haley and Derek are surviving, it sounds like, the early days. Derek, how's it feel to be a dad? And welcome back, man. Good to see you.
Oh, it's good to be back. Good to come up for air out of the baby bunker. You're feeling a lot of different things. Fatigue for sure, but definitely, happiness with the little guy. And he makes you happy, he makes you stress, he makes you a little bit of everything. As you warned me, you forewarned me that you're going to feel all these emotions to the nth degree. But yeah, it's pretty special, a special process to go through. And more love and admiration for my wife for bringing him into this world and everything that she does. So I'm just playing my part and taking it day by day. It's a fluid situation. Sometimes, oh, he's happy, he's sleeping, this is great. And oh, he's screaming his head off and we're panicking. So everything in between.
It sounds like fatherhood right there, especially the early days of fatherhood. So despite getting like the dad 101, learning placenta, meconium, all these different things you got to learn as a dad, how would you describe your role now? Like in basketball terms of, obviously Haley's the go-to player here.
Yes.
Cade's the baby superstar you're raising here. Like what's Derek Piper's role on this team?
I kind of feel like a freshman. I'm just trying to play defense and play hard and just be willing to do anything that it takes and make sure I'm going to the leader and asking what they need, and that being Haley, and she directs me around. So we do the diaper changes pretty well. I think we get the pit crew going on. That's definitely the best way to do it. Now, that's not always going to be it. So I've done a couple solos, and really that hasn't been as bad as I expected. Of course, I knock on wood with anything I say like that, but we're doing some bottles and that's going. He prefers the other method, but that allows me to hold him and everything. So I just kind of play my role, try to be as positionless as I can be and fit into wherever I'm needed.
Yeah, I think we got every kind of basketball recruit reference we could when you announced it on Twitter. But good to see Cade. Like what 99th percentile height? We might actually have a hooper. I mean, the Pipers are
95th percentile in height. He's gained a lot of the weight back. You lose the weight after you're born. So he came in at, he was 21 inches long and 8'5". So as far as the weight, he's got really long arms, big hands, big feet. He's going to be, he keeps on that projectile. He's going to be pretty big.
With the combine numbers here coming in. Yeah, Derek, I'm happy for you and Haley, man. And hey, are you willing to share the story, the name?
Yeah, actually, we were at Io's NBA draft party, and Haley and I were up there and watching the draft, and Cade Cunningham was the first pick of the draft. And from that moment on, Haley really, that stuck with her as far as a name that she really wanted. I was pushing for Troy, was my favorite, going back to when I was growing up, but Cade really stuck out, and that was ultimately the number one pick. Just like Cade Cunningham was in this last draft. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, you got a generation of Shaqs, you got a generation of Kobe's, and now the generation of Cade's. Maybe Luka's will start. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens there. All right, Derek. So let's get caught up to speed, man. I know you kind of kept your pulse on this despite everything. Illinois basketball is in the midst of this great offseason overhaul. And before we get into who they're adding, Matthew Meyer, Pete Nance, kind of top targets, it seems like right now. We know 5 guys are coming back unless they enter the portal and are willing to sit out a year. So you get 5 guys back, you get 4 freshmen. What'd you think of Brad Underwood and this staff and the 5 guys they're able to keep around? Maybe Brandon Lieb surprises some people. Maybe Coleman Hawkins scared some people for a little bit there. But what do you think about the roster that's coming back and is still going to be here?
I think outside of Kofi, you would have graded Coleman Hawkins and RJ Melendez is probably the top 2 that you would have wanted back after last season. Of course, those that know what Andre Curbelo is when he's fully healthy and back to his freshman season, I understand that he was polarizing. Some were done with him and we're fine with him moving on. And if he were to come back, I think that others would have hoped that he'd get back to that level. But to keep Coleman around, to keep RJ, those were ones that maybe you're just wondering about how they see their fit, their role, and making sure that they're happy. So to have them here, you're hearing some good things about Dane. Of course, we heard good things about Omar Payne too. So you got to wait and see that thing play out. But he's very skilled, and that's exciting as well. And then, I mean, how could you not love the freshman group with Sky and Epps and Harris and Ty Rogers? So a lot of potential with that group. And as we've talked about before, a top 10 rated class. So yeah, and Luke Goody, another one coming back. I think that obviously you would have liked to reel Kofi back in for another year, and we can talk about some of these additions that they're hoping to make. And then, of course, Terrence Shannon Jr. was a big one to really bring in an impact player and something they didn't have on this roster. So, yeah, I think that all in all, it's turned out pretty solid for them, and potential to add another piece or two could really push them into contention back in the top echelon of the Big Ten.
Derek, I don't know, before you kind of went on your paternity leave, we thought Terrence Shannon was going to be an Illini. Like, it felt like, at points you were told, hey, that's probably not going to happen. And there was all this Michigan buzz. He was on campus in Ann Arbor. And then Illinois kind of stays in it. Brad Underwood didn't panic and go elsewhere. He kind of wanted to see that one through, it felt like. And now Terrence Shannon's an Illini. So what do you think about how that recruitment went and what he means, bringing somebody on is that proven, that talented on the wing?
I think for starters, the fact that the news was breaking when I was in the delivery room wasn't ideal, but it was expected that something like that would happen. But yeah, there was a point right immediately when he hit the portal, the fact that Illinois had recruited him very hard, the fact that he's from Chicago and his mom's still back there. And then for them having a need for getting bigger and more athletic on the wing, it made a lot of sense. And there was immediate buzz for Illinois at that stage of things. But as it kind of progressed, you started to hear Michigan buzz, as you were saying. And there was some pumping of the brakes kind of around the Illini camp about, well, he makes a lot of sense for us, but I don't know that that's ultimately going to work out. And based on what Hunter Dickinson has shared with the world, it sounded like to confirm that, Michigan was probably his preference and where he was ultimately going to go. And when that didn't work out, then Illinois was able to stay in position to land him at that point and work things out on the academic side. And then still the fit was there and all the things that made sense for him. So we talked about on the wing and just the big guards, the big athletic wings that gave Illinois problems last year. I think that Shannon's a two-way guy, a guy that plays great in transition. He's as explosive as anybody that was out there in the portal. So adding that athleticism, adding the fact that he can play above the rim, and then be someone that at the defensive end at 6'6" and a wingspan that's impressive and just kind of that mobility, he can check some guys, whether it be at the two, whether it be on the wing. I mean, he was part of some really impressive defensive units at Texas Tech. So that was a very good addition and one that put him with RJ as your guys kind of 2-3 or on the wing. It's pretty good pair right there.
That's a huge upgrade in terms of size, strength, athleticism. You pair that with Coleman Hawkins, Dane Danger, and you hope, obviously Ty Rogers with Goody, and then you hope another front court piece. Illinois is definitely getting bigger, stronger, more athletic. What do you think about him in the half court, Derek? I don't know if that's the strength of his, more kind of a guy who can make set shots, kind of a catch and shoot guy, but also can be a slasher, but ball handling doesn't seem to be his strength. Do you think he's got another gear? Do you think Illinois can unlock another gear there? Because he is a guy that's getting buzz as a potential, NBA draft pick next year.
Yeah, I think that one thing was very encouraging was just his catch and shoot numbers went really, really took a big step last year, going up into like the top 80, top 90% tile as far as catch and shoot 3-point guy. So off the ball, I think that he can make be productive in the half court in that kind of a sense. And also as a slasher, if things break down and he's got a lane from the corner or from the wing, he's going to be able to go to the basket. And he had some back issues last year. And you look at kind of his rebounding rate and also his free throw rate, because he had been a guy in his previous seasons that got to the free throw line at a pretty high frequency. So I think that that's something that in the half court, if he can get a driving lane to at least go and absorb some contact and get to the free throw line. And he's been an 80+% free throw shooter, at least here recently. So I think that that's something that he could add to the half court. But yeah, he hasn't been someone that you really run your offense through. Like you put him in a ball screen. I know that he's been in some of those situations. His efficiency has not been very high though. And his mid-range jump shot needs to get better. But if you look back at his high school, I mean, he was a prolific scorer on Macaron Fire and someone that get a bucket from anywhere. So I'm sure that they're hoping that they can get him to similar to Io, kind of find that mid-range game, that in-between game. If people are going to close out hard on his threes and wall up in the paint, can he hit that mid-range shot to kind of just make him a 3-level scorer? I'm sure that they're going to try to do that. I'm sure they think that they can get that out of him.
All right, Derek. So we're imagining here a lineup of Sky Clark, Jaden Epps at the 1, Terrence, Shannon, RJ Melendez at the 2, Coleman Hawkins, Ty Rogers, Luke Goody in that 3-4 mix. And of course, Coleman could play the 5 with Dane Danger. So before we get to the potential front court pieces, Joey and I bandied this about. It's been a topic on the message board here recently. I do think like you'd love to add in an ideal world a guard. It just seems complicated about getting a guard who's interested potentially in sharing the role with freshmen. And, if you do add a veteran guard, of also developing those freshman guards behind them because they're so talented. And, I know you're always concerned whether freshmen play or not. Sometimes they leave like Adam Miller, but it just seems like a more delicate situation than the front court. So just what do you think about the possibility of adding a guard? Is it realistic? Do you think they can add somebody there?
I think it's realistic. It's got to be a certain type of guard. I think that you look out there and there's some pure scorers. I think that maybe you're not looking for that because you know that Epps and Sky Clark are score first guards, at least at this point in their career, and guys that, as you kind of forecast their roles next year, expected to have the ball in their hands quite a bit. So I think that you're looking for a guard who could play both on and off the ball, a guy that maybe even is geared towards a facilitating role to kind of set them up, but can be that catch and shoot guy and not be a big liability as a shooter. But yeah, now that you have Shannon, who probably, if you're thinking starting lineup, Shannon at the 2, RJ at the 3, Coleman 4, and then maybe Dane, or if you do get a Pete Nance, and of course things can shuffle if you get Matthew Meyer. So that 1 spot, I think that there's been an expectation that Sky Clark, if he is fully healthy, would probably be your starting 1. So how does that look for a Courtney Ramey? Is Courtney Ramey willing to come in and compete with him or try to coexist and see what that role ultimately looks like? I think that Ramey in particular still, in my mind, is a very good fit because of the fact of he doesn't have to be the guy as far as a scorer. He can be a catch and shoot weapon, and defensively, you're still looking at him as someone that could really make an impact. As you talk about like the top on ball guys, trying to match up with them. I think that Ramey makes sense. Even Malachi Smith, I think it would be interesting in terms of how he sees what his role would be here. Someone that put up 20 a game in Chattanooga, and we know can shoot the 3 as well. So I think it is complicated. I think you're right in terms of a sell, and it's not easy to say come right in and have a huge role or have a bigger role as you want because of those freshmen, how talented they are. But I still think that it'd be very valuable. I think that I personally think for Illinois to have the type of season that fans are probably going to want, you're going to want a veteran ball handler back there, because otherwise you just never know. I mean, we've had some really talented guards come into the Big Ten and struggle with efficiency, turnovers, and we still haven't seen Sky Clark be consistently healthy for a while too. So I think that's something to consider as well.
Yeah, I have a hard time. Like I would have a hard time as a coach, Derek, feeling comfortable going into the season, not because you don't think those guys are talented or eventually they'll be able to handle it. It's the Big Ten is wide open. I mean, with the potential of Diabate and Houston and Trace Jackson, David, Chris Murray, like all those guys are in the combine. We'll talk about that here in a second, but Illinois could be a major player if they had a guard like a Courtney Ramey, or, if there's a mid-major guy that's, I know Mike Smith and Devontae Jones are both really highly ranked transfers, but like guys like that, if you could add somebody like that, I think you could be one of the favorites again in the Big Ten. Or if Sky Clark isn't fully healthy, or if Jaden Epps isn't ready, or Sincere Harris isn't ready, like you don't have many guards. There's 3 real ball handlers, maybe 2 on this roster, and both those guys are freshmen. So I agree with you there. Let's talk about the big guys though, because that is the clear, like there is a 25+ minute a game role there, because Dane Danger has played 9 minutes in college. Coleman Hawkins is going to play 25+ minutes, right? As long as he plays well and takes care of his business. He's going to be a major part of this team. But Illinois seems to be being patient here, Derek, and there seems to be a reason behind it. Matthew Meyer at Baylor, Pete Nance at Northwestern, both in the transfer portal, both in the draft. I would expect both would come back to college most likely, because neither has gotten an NBA draft combine invite. Meyer didn't even get a G League camp invite, or Meyer, excuse me. And then Nance got the G League camp invite. So what do you think of the pursuit of those 2 There's debate of who would you rather have. I don't think we should be debating that. It's who wants to sign up, because either of those guys could make Illinois really good, just in different ways.
Yeah, either guy would move the needle a lot and would really provide a lot of value. Proven commodities, very experienced. Obviously, Meyer playing at a national championship level, and love his versatility on defense and the fact that he could probably guard 2 through 5. I think that there is a talk of just kind of the style of the Big Ten and maybe needing more of an answer as a defensive 5-man, and maybe that's Pete Nance. And yeah, you can have preferences, and I understand if you think Nance is more offensively dynamic, but you like Meyer being maybe more of that up-tempo, positionless, switchable defense type of. I mean, either one would be phenomenal. And the fact that now we're kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern, like you were talking about with Nance going through the G League Combine, hoping to then parlay that and get an invite to the NBA Combine. And Meyer, I don't know what he's ultimately going to do in terms of pulling out. I know that there's talks of intentions of staying in, but I think that everybody, as we've even seen with Illinois players, Io and Kofi, guys enter their names in the draft trying to go as hard as they can towards getting picked or getting a professional opportunity before then they ultimately come back. So that June 1st date until you withdraw is really what we got to keep an eye on. But either one of those guys would really put you in a situation where you talk about starting lineups. I think Nance and Coleman as a 4-5 type of duo make a lot of sense and can really complement each other and space the floor. And defensively, I love that what they could potentially bring there. And you got RJ and Terrence, and if you're starting Sky Clark, I mean, that's super talented. Or slide in Matthew Meyer, whether it be him at the 4 and Coleman at the 5 and Dane off the bench, or however that looks, because Meyer can really slot in a couple of different spots and be a 3-point shooter. I mean, that's pretty exciting just to have those options after missing that opportunity to bring Kofi back and just kind of what that would look like. Those are two very high caliber guys.
Nance makes so much sense from a fit perspective, right? When you talk about a guy who can play the 4 and the 5, you can put Coleman, kind of at the 5 offensively a little bit. Pete can play there too. Both those guys are pretty good defenders. Coleman, obviously a little bit more versatile, but you feel like Nance could body up at least Hunter Dickinson and Zach Edey, the 2 true 5s coming back. Cliff Omaruri, another guy we got to be talking about with the 5s in the Big Ten. But Matthew Meyer, the fit there just intrigues the heck out of me, Derek, because the one word I keep using with him, if he comes to Illinois, that's going to be one of the most entertaining Illinois teams we've seen. I mean, we talk about the Flying Illini. You got Meyer, Hawkins, Ty Rogers, RJ Melendez, Terrence Shannon with Sky Clark and Jaden Epps. Like, that team is going to run. That team is going to get up and down the court, and they're going to pose a lot of issues for the Edys or Dickinsons of the world. So while Illinois would have a huge disadvantage on the low block, right? I do think they can rebound, but they obviously have the strength deficit to some of these teams. They also pose a lot of issues for a lot of teams with their versatility and just athleticism and quickness. Like, that would be up and down, gun it style. And I think Underwood in the past has shown he loves that kind of style.
Yeah, I think he would love that. I think defensively, yeah, you'd have some issues one-on-one matchups with the ED. And that's not to say that even if he's on the offensive glass hurting you because you don't have that Kofi-like presence to fully box him out or whatever, body him up. But I think that with that kind of length and athleticism, I mean, why not Houston and double the post on every touch and have guys flying around on the perimeter, rotating and trying to take away passing lanes and create steals. And I think it would be fascinating to see how Brad changes even his defensive style. If you're trying to force some turnovers and just dial it up, I think that athletically you would have the type of pieces to be able to do that. And yeah, they would be up and down, fast paced. I mean, Meyer's someone that can push it himself in transition, a guy that can attack the rim, that's pretty athletic, that can shoot the 3, and different guys that can get the ball on the perimeter, even in the half court, and make a play off the bounce. Meyer's another one of those. I know that's something that you really like about, Terrence Shannon Jr. potentially being able to slash and go to the rim. And that's been something they've highly coveted. And Brad offered Matthew Meyer back within a month of his getting the job there at Stillwater when he's at Oklahoma State. So he recruited him for a little while. I'm very familiar with him. But Nance is the natural fit. I don't really worry. I know that it had been talked about on the board, the Big Ten experience. Not really worried about that. But the fact that he does make sense in terms of playing significant minutes at the 5, defensively at least, and then having Coleman as that 4-man. Again, if you're facing Zach Edey and you got Nance who can kind of be that initial contact on him and even bring Coleman over for some length to help on him, I think you could do that. And then offensively, Nance, like, great passer, great mid-range game, shot over 40% from 3. There's a lot of things you can do with him, pick and pop, pick and roll, and even like the mid-post type of game is really enticing with him as well.
Yeah, so I totally understand. Nance is like, hey, ideal fit, cookie cutter, exactly what you need. Professor Underwood might like Meyer a lot with what he could do and what he could change there. I mean, Derek, without seeing like and hearing them connected, Brad Underwood said, you're not going to hear us connected with a lot of guys as much as other programs. And we haven't really with other big men. Do you think that's a sign of confidence, or is it just a sign that, hey, if we're going to add somebody, it's going to be somebody that good?
I think it's a little of both. I think that there is confidence in the fact of the role that they can offer, like you were talking about. Now, like we've discussed Dane Danger potentially being your starting 5-man. That's been an option on the table, at least, and to play significant minutes. Coleman Hawkins, but when you lose Kofi and assuming you're losing Jacob Grandison, then you're going to have big minutes in that front court. So I think there is confidence in the role that's available, the winning that's Illinois has been able to do, and then. I mean, look, we're talking about the NIL money that Kofi could have got. Well, that's not going to Kofi. I'm not saying that you didn't have to. You have Terrence Shannon commanding some of that, but there's a large commitment there. And we even saw Andrew Slater from Pro Insights was talking about Matthew Meyer, probably just a big factor in his recruitment, and probably a lot of them in terms of he's coming back to college is what's the best offer, what's the best setup he can get NIL wise. And we already saw Illinois, North Carolina war with Dawson Garcia last offseason. Would that be revisited with Meyer?
Did he get that million? Did Dawson Garcia get that million?
I don't think he did. I don't think he did. So, but yeah, I think that Illinois, from a NIL perspective, fit, role, everything, I think there is confidence there. But yeah, they're going to be selective. And if they don't get one of those two guys, there might be another piece or two in that draft process that decides to come back to college and then enter the portal. And then maybe that deadline, like we've talked about with May 1st, doesn't matter there in terms of them being eligible.
Derek, let's talk about that. Kofi gets invited to the combine. I think that's a good sign for him. I don't know if that means he'll get drafted, but I did a little research, and of the 64 guys who were participating in the combine, some of the guys turned it down because they were so good they didn't need to go to the combine. But of the 64 college guys that went to the combine, 67% got drafted, 43 of them. 8 returned to college and 16 went undrafted. But a lot of those guys obviously signed with G League or got the 2-way contract. So that seems like a good sign for Kofi that he's got a chance here, right? I think he's going to have a chance to get on NBA training camp, certainly, and then work his way into a role. But, NBA GMs and executives vote on this, and they wanted to see Kofi, and he didn't get that last year. So he did help his stock. I think we can say that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's very exciting for him with the opportunity that he's going to be presented with to prove himself against that field of NBA draft. The guys that are going to be projecting the lottery, the guys that are going to be projected draft picks are all going to be there at the NBA combine. And he's got a chance to prove himself as maybe being worthy of a late 2nd round pick or whatever it might be. So yeah, in that type of a sense, not being back in the G League camp and not being in the NBA combine. So they feel like they want to take a closer look at him. He's done some things, maybe flashing the jump shot a little bit, passing it better than he did last season. He is, and the feedback was this spring, like 2-way contract was probably his most likely outcome and something that teams were definitely intrigued by with him. So he's got a chance to go earn it now, and he's going to be playing at least in the G League. Now, you want it for him in terms of, especially to make financial sense of his decision to be a 2-way contract versus just a straight up G League deal, because then he'd have left a lot of money on the table there at Illinois versus what he ultimately got. But it's going to be very intriguing to hear and see what the feedback is on Kofi out of that combine, and kind of if he is going to work his way into that late 2nd round, or if it's going to be what it's ultimately going to look like. Because now it's just him at that level trying to prove some doubters wrong, and we'll see if he can do that.
Yeah, we've had a hit on it ad nauseum that the NBA is kind of not his kind of style of game anymore, but there is still guys that have his kind of skill set. I think Andre Drummond is somebody he can look at and say, hey, we need a big physical enforcer that can rebound and play some decent interior defense, knowing he's going to give up something, but that he can make up for it. Like, I still think there's a team or some teams that could want that piece eventually. Derek, I do want to talk about this as well. Reportedly, we haven't seen the official list yet, but Chris Murray also is going to the NBA draft combine. Caleb Houston and Moussa Diabate are going there. Trace Jackson Davis. I mean, the Big Ten could lose so much talent here. 15 of the 17 guys are not guaranteed to come back that were on the all Big Ten team last year. The only two coming back for sure are Zach Edey and Hunter Dickinson. So those guys are going to have pretty good years next year. Not to say the Big Ten's not going to have good teams or be as talented, but man, this could be wide open. I had Michigan as a team that I thought could be great. Michigan State, Max Christie's going to be at the combine most likely as well. He's not guaranteed to come back. I thought him and Chris Murray and potentially Houston and Diabate could be first rounders if they came back for another year, or maybe even lottery picks, but can't blame those guys. If those guys are top 45 picks and just get in the league right away, what do you make of that? I'm trying to think of who I would have as my number one team, and there's potential Illinois, Michigan State, Michigan. I thought Indiana could take a step forward, but if they don't have Trace Jackson Davis, like, they're going to be young and inexperienced. So what do you make of all this, man?
A lot of opportunity for a team like Illinois if you're trying to stack this roster up and be in contention for potentially even. It's crazy to say, if you would have told mid-season, if, hey, you're going to lose Curbelo and Kofi in the offseason, and are you going to compete for a Big Ten title? I don't know if people would buy into that, but I think that Michigan has the most to gain or lose. I think if they were to get Houston and Diabate back with Dickinson in that class they have, I mean, they would be ridiculous. But if they were to lose both those guys, and all of a sudden there's a lot more uncertainty, I'm interested by Trace Jackson Davis's decision, because I agree with you. You get Tamar Bates, who was a 5-star freshman last year, and he's coming back now and a year to take a step forward. Race Thompson, if they were to get him back for another year, Indiana could be in position to take a significant step forward. You got Jalen Hood-Shapiro as another 5-star coming in this class, so they're going to be talented if he were to return. Chris Murray is a crazy one. Like, Iowa's got to be, oh man, like, did not think Keegan would leave after 2 years, and if you lost Chris too, I mean, that'd be hard to swallow. But
if Chris is a top 40 pick, like, he's an older guy. Like, I think he's 21, him and his brother, 21, 22 years old. Like, you might have to go. I would have to go if I'm those guys. And Iowa was a team, Derek, that I kind of liked, even with losing Keegan Murray, because, the McCaffreys are back. Toussaint, I know, left, but they had some really good guards. I think Tony Perkins can be one of the better guards in the Big Ten. So I thought they had a really good chance. Bracha, I know, wasn't great last year, but he's back. Like, I thought that could be one of the better teams in the Big Ten yet again. And if Chris Murray's gone, no, I'm probably not going to have them.
No, definitely not. I know they were even linked to potentially Trey Mitchell. Are they going to have the guy with the great suits on the sideline there in Iowa City? I don't know about that. They might need him if Chris Murray's going to join this group as well of guys leaving. But
everything coming up Wisconsin, Derek. That's what this all is leading to.
Oh my gosh. Right? Who knows?
Ready for Tyler Walsh, Stephen Crowell, and Chucky Hepburn taking over the Big Ten. That's where this
is. How about that? I mean, I can't doubt it anymore. I've doubted it for too many years, and they keep proving me wrong. But yeah, it'd be hard to argue. Yeah, like you said, Chris Murray, if he's a top 40 pick, if he's going to go, you can't argue with that. But if he were to come back, I would still like that Iowa squad quite a bit as well.
Yeah, Ohio State's changing over so much. They've been busy as anybody in the Big Ten in the portal with 4 guys coming in, including some talented guys. I just don't know how it's all going to fit together. It's kind of like they're the Texas this year, though not quite as high quality. So it's just wide open. It's going to make for a fun race. I think if you end up being a down year for the Big Ten, like, how many top 15 teams are there going to be in the preseason polls? Not that those matter, but I don't think there's going to be many of them. But if you're in Illinois and Derek, you're expecting this rebuild year, and you're seeing all these other teams rebuild, and you're adding Terrence, Shannon, and Matthew, and maybe one of Meyer or Nance, plus a top 10 recruiting class, plus an RJ Melendez and Coleman Hawkins coming back, like, you got the potential to be getting some of those votes again in the preseason poll to win the Big Ten.
Yeah, you would. And it would be about that guard group living up to its potential, at least being solid enough in their freshman seasons. If you're not going to add that veteran guard piece, or say it's not a huge splash like a Courtney Ramey, but if you were to get, like you said, Nance or Meyer and throw it into the mix with everything that you already have, you'd have a lot of pieces and a lot of potential if some of these guys do stay in the draft to maybe even be the favorite, be, top 3 projected preseason poll. I mean, what's Purdue going to be? They got to find a point guard, and
that's a good point.
Like Edie coming back.
I mean, Edie coming back's huge, and they still got Gillis and a bunch of those guys who were role players last year killed Illinois and West Lafayette. That's a team that, like, Jaden Ivey was so good, Derek, but there was just kind of this, like, he had already moved on like halfway through the year, that I wonder, like, this team's not gonna be better than last year's Purdue team, but they might play better together. Like, they should be better defensively. That's a team that in the regular season is probably gonna be pretty good. Like, Painter's, I always give Painter teams a little bit of a boost in my preseason, just because regular season, they are usually so good.
Oh yeah. I mean, it must have been after that Illinois Purdue game in West Lafayette that Ivey then packed it in, because he was engaged that night there.
Not packed it in. It was just kind of like, I'll turn it on every once in a while when I want to.
No, I get what you mean. But certainly, Matt Painter knows how to win in the regular season. I mean, you're going to have Edie. That's going to be something that's going to be tough for anybody to stop. And they're still involved with some of these high caliber point guards. They missed on Nigel Pack. They were expected to land him until the big boatload of money came in from Miami and he went down there. I mean, can you imagine making $400K a year and being a college student in Miami? That'd be a pretty good life. So I don't blame Nigel for that.
Pretty good. Purdue, step it up. Your NIL collective, you got to step it up here a little bit. I mean, I think that's a great role. Anybody who wants to come in and be a lead guard for a team with Zach Edey and Brandon Newman, I think can be really good. Gillis first, Ethan Morton, I think is going to be a player Big Ten teams hate. I think they could still be pretty good as well. But man, there's so much to play out here, and Derek will cover it all between feedings, between changings. Right. We appreciate you coming on with us now, but hey, congratulations to you and Haley, man. And we'd be happy to get you back a little bit, but still enjoy this time with the new clan, the new team Piper over there.
I sure will. I appreciate that. It's good talking hoops instead of, what's going on in the diaper these days or when he's going down for a nap. It was refreshing to come back and talk some ball. So I'll be excited to work my way back in. And I appreciate you guys covering while I was gone.
I know we're men and we're disgusting, but have you ever talked so much about poop in your life?
No. The color of it, the texture. Nope. We have not gotten that deep into it until now. I've seen a lot of things that I haven't seen and talked about before. So
it's a bonding experience with your wife, right? Like, it's just, that's like the highlight of your day is talking that. All right, Derek Piper, get some sleep, man. We'll talk to you soon.
I'll try. We'll talk.